disturbing horror story. Tonight we jump into a creepy story that had to be told all by itself. Type creepy in the comments below if it creeped you out, or lame if it was lame. Now enjoy, and don't be too scared to sleep. This took place on January of 2015 in the US. A little bit of backstory. I had known my roommate Alex for 3 years at the time of the event. We met through a mutual friend that figured that I could use a Hispanic roommate when I moved to the States to go to college, because I'm also a Spanish speaker. I always thought he was rather odd and possibly homosexual, but that never bugged me, considering that I have several homosexual family members. Alex never spoke about his sexuality near me. In fact, I had every reason to believe he was homosexual because of the way he talked, dressed, and behaved overall. The thing that always stroked me as weird is the fact that he would constantly make fun of homosexuals. After some time, my brother Jacob and I got extremely surprised when he introduced us to his new girlfriend Kelly. I remember saying, "Wow, I guess he's not gay after all," to my brother as a joke. Kelly seemed nice and all, but she didn't live in town. So Alex and Kelly were having a long-distance relationship and always spent their free time on Skype talking. After some time, my brother and I realized that Alex was coming home quite late. My brother then assumed that Alex was cheating on Kelly because he noticed that Alex would come back rather exhausted, wearing his shirts inside out. It was none of our business, so we kept our theories to ourselves. One day, Kelly came to visit. While she was visiting, she discovered that Alex had a dating site on his phone. She also realized that the dating site was for homosexuals, and he had several messages that talked about some sexual encounters that had happened in the past. She also came to realize that he was on Craigslist looking for one-night stands with men. Kelly was beyond furious with him and made him write a public apology on Facebook. Alex was a graduate student and had many of his colleagues, teachers, and even his advisors on Facebook. Everyone knew what he had done. Alex was devastated. He wasn't really talking to Jacob or me after the incident. Some weeks went by, and he wasn't getting any better. He was also financially broke and still in really bad shape. I noticed that he stopped eating, and he was only drinking coffee and reading the Bible. I apologize for the long backstory, but I think it's necessary for this story to make sense. Now to the day of the incident. I went to school that day and had plans to go eat with my girlfriend after. When we met to go eat, I had a weird feeling that I needed to go home. I didn't know why, but one thing was certain at the time, and that was that I had to cancel my lunch plans and go back home. My girlfriend thought it was weird, but she said okay. When I arrived home, I noticed that Alex was sitting in the living room basically staring at nothing. I attempted to start a conversation with him. I said, "Alex, are you okay? I've noticed that you've been really stressed lately. Want to talk about it?" But he didn't answer. It was like Alex didn't even acknowledge that I was in the room with him. So I said, "Well, I guess I'll leave you to your thoughts." I went upstairs to the bathroom. When I was done with my business, I heard some screaming and yelling coming from downstairs. I remember saying out loud, "What the hell?" I was slowly making my way downstairs when I started hearing growling followed by laughter, followed by growling again. It was weird. When I got downstairs, I saw Alex on the floor of the living room, twisting his body like he was in pain. I remember asking, "Alex, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" But he didn't answer. He just kept on screaming and laughing. I was in shock. What in the actual hell is going on here? I remember screaming at him, "Snap out of it." The room felt cold, really cold. He kept twisting his body like if he was having an epileptic seizure. At one point he stopped. Then he looked at me. His eyes were completely rolled back, so all I could see was white. And in a demonic voice in perfect English he said, "It's the devil." I froze. Alex was also from a Hispanic-speaking country, so he had a very thick accent. How could he possibly be speaking in perfect English? After saying that, he started speaking a weird language. It was like if he was speaking backwards. He kept twisting his body around, and now his tongue was moving like a snake, like the little girl from The Exorcist. I didn't know exactly what to do. I thought of recording it, but I was too scared to do so. I went outside the house and saw my neighbor. I told him what was happening, and I even opened the door so that he could see what Alex was doing. All he said to me was, "I'm sorry, bro. I'm late for class. Good luck." Thanks for nothing, I thought to myself. I called a friend of Alex who was a pastor. Let's call him Daniel. I knew Daniel because him and his wife would invite us to dinner every once in a while. I haven't spoken to him for at least a year because Alex suddenly stopped talking to them. I remember saying, "Daniel, I know we haven't talked in a really long time, and this is going to sound really crazy, but Alex is laying in my living room claiming he's the devil." Daniel's reply went a little like this: "No, it doesn't sound that weird. I've dealt with similar situations in my life. I'm on my way." When I went back into the house, my heart dropped. Alex was lying face up, holding a butcher knife against his stomach. He was still moving his tongue. My first thought was to take the knife away from him, but then I figured that he was unstable. A swing with that knife could end my life if I attempted to get close. I went back outside to call Daniel again. I said, "Daniel, Alex is holding a knife against himself. What do I do?" He said, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't want you to get hurt, bud. Just wait for me outside. I'm almost there." When Daniel arrived, I showed him the way to Alex. When we got into the house, I could not believe my eyes. I yelled, "Daniel, should I call 911?" It took Daniel a little longer to acknowledge what was happening. There he was, my roommate laying on the floor, pulling his own intestines out of his damn body. There was blood all over the floor. He just kept pulling them out. Daniel told me to go outside and call 911 immediately, so I did. I probably sounded like a complete lunatic to the dispatch operator when I explained everything to her. She said that an ambulance and the cops were on their way, and asked me to tell them exactly what I had told her. When I went back inside, Daniel had stopped Alex from pulling his intestines out of his body. He started praying to him. He said, "I demand to speak to Alex, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ." But all we got back from Alex was the weird language he was speaking, and the growling. When the paramedics arrived, they started working on Alex and realized he was completely out of it. They kept telling Alex to hold on, and that everything was going to be okay. Alex lost consciousness, if you could call it that. They immediately took him to urgent care. My girlfriend called and I said I couldn't talk at the moment. I told her with very short detail what was happening and hung up. The cops then questioned me and Daniel. They asked me if there were any drugs or alcohol at the house, if Alex was on medication, etc. They questioned me repeatedly. Different cops asked me to tell them what happened. They even made me write it down. This sucked because I was still trying to process what I had witnessed. However, as cops, it is their job to be suspicious. Making me repeat my statement is a technique to see if I change the story. Jacob arrived shortly after, and the police questioned him too. When they were questioning Daniel, he told them that he could assure them I had nothing to do with Alex's injuries. Even after all the questioning, the police took me into custody thinking I was responsible for what Alex did. After hours at the police station, they finally let me go. Daniel picked me up at the station and then took me to the hospital to see how Alex was doing. We arrived at the hospital, and they told us that he was in really bad shape and he was still in surgery. I was able to see him about 4 hours after. He held my hand and apologized. He was barely awake. Daniel then took me back to the house. We kept discussing what happened, and he told me that Alex was possessed by an evil demon. That's why he was able to speak in a different language and do what he did. I told him that I was afraid of staying at the house, so he agreed to have another pastor help him bless the house. When we arrived, Jacob had already taken care of the blood. He told me that the cops took the knife as evidence. Good thing I didn't touch the knife. My girlfriend was there to comfort me and try to calm me down. My adrenaline was still going like crazy. She said she would stay the night with me to make me feel better. To be honest, I couldn't thank her enough for that. Not everyone would be willing to stay at that house after something like that. I was afraid that the same thing was going to happen to her in the middle of the night. Weeks later, I learned that she was thinking the same thing about me, and that she was extremely scared of staying with me that night. My girlfriend and I went to bed. I fell asleep quite quickly because I had a really traumatic day. Unfortunately, my dream was a continuation of that very same day. In my dream, I decided that I didn't want to stay at the house after that craziness with Alex, so my girlfriend and I ended up going to a hotel. At the hotel, still in my dream, I remember asking my girlfriend, how can somebody be in such bad shape that would allow something that dark to take over their bodies? Shortly after we went to bed, I was basically asleep in my dream when I heard a knocking on the door. I looked at the clock and it was 7:03. I said, damn it, I'm so tired after what I went through that I'm just going to ignore it. Then I thought it could be news about Alex, so I got up and looked through the peephole. All I could see was an empty hallway, when suddenly out of nothing I saw a creature running insanely fast towards the door, hitting it very hard and laughing at the moment of impact. The creature looked like that demon from Insidious or Darth Maul, a black and red face. I backed away and I kept hearing laughter. I got so mad after that I punched the door right back. After punching the door, I heard the creature laugh again, and then it said, well played. I woke up right after. I've always wondered if the creature I saw in my dream was the same creature that took over Alex's body. Alex barely survived the incident. He spent 2 months in the hospital because of severe internal damage. I had to go to therapy for a very long time because of what happened. I couldn't drink or smoke weed at my own house because I would dream about Alex standing up with his intestines out screaming while staring at me. When Alex got better, he sent some people to get his stuff out of the house. He was too embarrassed to stay or even pick them up himself, and I really didn't want to see him after everything that had happened. This has probably been the worst experience of my life. The cops that I talked to said that I did exactly what I should have done in that situation. They said that without any medical attention, Alex would have been dead in minutes. They also told me that that was probably one of the weirdest incidents they had ever worked. My girlfriend and I believe that thanks to that strange sensation I had of urgently having to go home instead of going out to lunch with her, Alex is still alive today. You guys are awesome. Thanks for listening, and make sure you stab that like button. And if this story didn't get you scared, watch 5 scary stories that will make you sweat right here.